Hey chicks, let's chat. So in light of Mother's Day, I always like to catch a topic that some, maybe even most, can relate to, right? So today I want to deal with forgiving your mom, right? Because I think sometimes forgiving your mom is one of the hardest things to do, right? Because number one, you have to first understand that your mom was not perfect, right? And sometimes that's a hard thing to wrap your mind around, the fact that, she didn't get it right. She didn't get everything right. Well, she's not perfect. She's a human. She wasn't going to get everything right. For those people who had moms who pretty much nailed almost everything, kudos, top tier, top of the line. That's great. But for the majority of us who had moms who came up short, maybe even failed us in a lot of ways, forgiveness came hard. Forgiveness took a while. Some people have not even got to the point of forgiveness. Some people may not ever forgive. Some people just look over and don't even care to address it. Just give them a pass because it's too hard to relive those things that caused them so much hurt and pain. So they rather just skip over it and not even have to deal with the pain or the hurt that mom caused, right? So what that looks like is I show up just because I'm supposed to. I send Happy Mother's Day just because I'm supposed to, but I don't really spend no real time with you. I don't really have no deep conversations with you. I don't really tell you anything that's near and dear to my heart. Why? Because really, there's a rift. There's something going on inside of me where I can't really get that close to you because there's some things that I have not addressed with you. And I don't know how to address them, and I may not ever address. And a lot of times, that is men. That's how men do with their moms because they don't really want to open up that can of worms with mom. So it shows up as these dudes on podcasts being super angry, super aggressive, super negative towards women. Like, we can see those mommy issues a mile away. You may not understand that what you're dealing with is mommy issues, but that's exactly what it is. And because you can't tell your mama how bad of a person she was, you get online and on, any platform, and you tell all the other women how terrible they are, when the reality is that it's your mom and your sisters and your grandmas who came up short in your life, and you don't want to tell them, and you don't know how to tell them, right? So you take it out on all us other women. Get it? Understood? Now, women, we tend to be a little more verbal. So a lot of times we bump heads with our moms. And people say, yeah, they don't get along because they just alike. Well, all the time, that's not true. Sometimes, yes, you can have a lot of personality traits that your mom had, rightfully so. Sometimes the reason you ain't getting along with her is because you got a lot of um, sometimes the reason that you not getting along with her is because you got a lot of personality traits like your daddy. And mama and daddy ain't no longer together or was never together. So you and her automatically bumping heads. That's easy to understand. Her and your dad didn't get along, and you and her can't get along because you so much like your daddy, right? And a lot of times, what I see, even in my line of work, I see mothers and daughters struggle to have a bond, right? And I always can relate to those cases that I get where they're struggling to have a bond, and I try to see both sides of the situation because mom isn't right all the time, just like the child isn't right all the time. And sometimes both people cannot see the other person's perspective. Why? Sometimes it's selfish, sometimes it's just they're not open minded, sometimes they just don't care. Sometimes some people just are based on the hierarchy. I'm the mom, that's it. What I say, that's law. Nothing else matters. Your opinion, how you feel, none of that don't matter. I done did everything I could to take care of you. Or a lot of moms like to say, I did the best I could, And at some point, that may be all you have from her. That may be all you have. You may never get the apology that you wanted. Sometimes all you will get is, I did the best I could. I had to do it by myself. I ain't get no help, etc. so forth. Sometimes that may be all that you have. And as women, we may have to take that little tidbit and work with it. And basically try to see things from her perspective when she was the only person caring for you, when she was the only person showing up, what that looked like, what the sacrifice looked like, what the lonely nights looked like, what the aggravation, what the overwhelming feelings look like when she's the only one, right? And she may not have support from your dad or her parents or whoever. What does that look like? We have to understand that can show up as a frustration or anger towards the child, because here it is, she tried to do the right thing and bring life in, and then this life is causing her so much stress and so much pressure because she's trying to be a mom, right? And she didn't get the help that she thought would be there or whatever else. So yes, there may be a disgruntledness, a madness, a anger towards the child, and it may continue on for years. It may never go away, right? And sometimes a mom may not know how to say that to their child. Sometimes a mom may not want to say that to their child, right? But the reality is that if that's how she's feeling and if that's what was going on, she needs to say that. She needs to release that so that the daughter does not feel like, oh, my mom just hated me. No, mom hated the situation that she was put in trying to raise you, right? It may look like hate towards you, but it really was hate for the situation that came about because of you, right? But then you have to, then as a mom, you have to say, but that's a decision that you made, right? Twice you made a decision. You made a decision when you laid down, and then you made a decision when you decided, hey, I'm keeping this baby, right? Now, I'm not talking about for situations that maybe, that was out of people's control, like rapes and stuff like that, and then maybe they was forced to keep the baby, etc. That comes with a whole different level of anger, frustration, etc., right? Which anybody can understand, right? But in the big scheme of things, forgiveness needs to be on both parts, because sometimes mom has to be able to forgive herself for not showing up in the way that she needed to, because a lot of times moms know when they failed you. Even if they never admit it to you, they know they failed you in some ways, and a lot of times they're carrying guilt because they know they failed you, right? And then here you come throwing it in their face every chance you get. So that makes her feel she's carrying guilt. Now you pissing her off every time you point out every single thing wrong that she did in your life as if she did nothing right. So that don't make the situation no better. See, a lot of times it's both of us. It's the mother and it's the child. And we have to find a common ground. And the common ground is forgiveness. Whether she has to forgive you for not being the child that she wanted, because, let's not talk about that. A lot of kids showing up in ways that their parents never thought they would show up as. If their parent knew they would have turned out like that, they would have made different choices. Yeah, a lot of times as children, we are not good children to our parents. We are not. We don't respect them. We talk to them in a kind of way. We talk around them any kind of way. Like we don't say, oh, well, let me not cuss around her. Let me not say this. Let me not say that. We treat them as if they're our equals when they're not. We do not show them any type of respect in a tier. Like, the respect for your parents should be top tier. We respect them like we respect our old man or something. And that's not how that's supposed to be at all, right? But the forgiveness does have to show up on both people's parts. You have to be able to forgive your parent for not being who you thought they should have been, for not showing up or not providing in the way that maybe your friend's mama was able to provide, or not being able to, have conversations with you the way you might have wanted her to come in your room and just sit down and talk to you, and she didn't do any of that. Maybe she was with a man, maybe she was with her friends, maybe she just didn't have the capacity to have those kind of conversations because her mom never had those conversations with her, right? It's all going to start with being able to forgive. You have to find it somewhere in your heart to say, I forgive you for not being the person that I needed, right? Because maybe she did do everything she could do, and it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't what you needed. Because sometimes a person can give you all that they have and love you the best way that they know how, but it still doesn't resonate with you because it's not the way you need it to be loved. If there was something missing, and maybe they knew that, and maybe they did not know that, and maybe they knew that I'm giving this kid all I could give, and it's still something that's lacking, and maybe they don't know what that is that's lacking. They don't know how to show up for you in that way. They're doing the best that they can, or they did the best that they could. And sometimes we just have to think about it from a different perspective. Try to put yourself in those exact shoes that your parent was in that day and time, in whatever the relationship was, with the amount of kids they had, etc., so forth. Sometimes we have women that was raising 3, 4, 5, 6 kids alone on the system, needing all kind of government help. All the daddies MIA. Of course, there was something you weren't going to get. Absolutely, there was something emotionally, physically, financially, or something that you weren't going to get. It just was impossible, right? Such is life. It happens that way sometimes. We are not all, serving golden and silver spoons. It just does not happen that way. And even when you do have gold and silver spoons that you came up under, there still will be something missing. You can have all the financial hooplas available to you as a kid, and mom may work too much, dad may work too much, right? There's still going to be something missing because none of us are being raised perfectly, because we're being raised by people, and none of the people are perfect. So if you think that you're going to raise your kids perfectly, you're wrong. If you think that your parents were supposed to raise you perfectly, you're wrong. And you're not looking at it from the perspective in which it deserves. Parenting is so utterly important. And I say that not being a mom myself, but having mothered so many. It's so important to get it right. But what does right look like? Right, getting parenting right shows up in so many different ways, right? I can get it right by being there for you emotionally, having everything right financially, and then somehow when you go out, in your teens, you still get raped, right? It happens. Life happens. I didn't fail you as a mom because that happened to you. I would have prevented that from happening to you, but I couldn't prevent life from happening to you, no matter how good I was, right? So I said all that just to say, listen, things happen. Life happens. Forgive people, especially your mom in this season, right? Sometimes mom didn't know how to nurture because mom didn't get nurtured, right? Sometimes mom didn't know how to speak to you softly because nobody spoke to her softly. Sometimes mom only knew to call you X, Y, and Z because that's what she was called. And then you always have the flip side where it's like, my grandma wasn't like that to her, why she like that to me? It happens. You will have to know what happened to your mom during her childhood, what her mental capacity is. You will have to know all of that, and have an understanding for it to really understand why she treats you like she treats you. Is there a thing where there are moms who are jealous of their kids? Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you have to get into her mind frame and understand where all of that comes from as well. You know, there's no cookie cutter way, or there's no cookie cutter relationships when it comes to mom and daughter or mom and son relationships. All of us have the ability to go through some things with our parents. All of us have the ability to carry some things from our childhood into our adulthood, right? It's life. We carry those things. We're better off served if we can find a way to forgive, find a way to get past those things that hurt us, find a way to get past those things that are causing a rift, causing a disconnect. You know, now some of us have people in our life that we're never going to be able to connect to. Sometimes it may be your mom, you know, and that's just an unfortunate situation. But sometimes there are situations that can be corrected with a little understanding and a whole lot of conversation and forgiveness. Enjoy your day.